All right. Hey, guys. We are here once again, and in my completely new setup, as you can see. It's a work in progress, I know. It's a little bit jarring to some of you because you're used to a big-ass, Blu-ray shelf being behind me, but that shelf is no more. I got a whole new setup. I'm going to put new posters here and things like that, but you guys don't care about that right now. This, of course, is going to be the 4th episode of a conversation with Kely, and I am here, as always, with my lovely co-host, Allie. How are you doing?
I am great. We love your upgraded room. It's amazing. You should put some posters of Big Brother and stuff.
I do not have a Big Brother poster currently.
I'm just here to have fun and talk about my opinions and.
Yeah. All right. So this week we are going to get into in a little bit, but before we do, I do want to introduce our guest. He is someone that, he's been out of this community for a little bit now. He has played some games here and there, but he expressed some interest in talking all things BB Cam with us. Here he is, Justin.
Hey, everybody. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me on. My name's Justin. Yes. I'm an absolutely huge Big Brother fan. Got started with BBUS back in, season 13, and ever since have just slowly becoming more and more obsessive about the show, super into feeds. As far as BB Can goes, I've seen every single season of Big Brother Canada except for the first season. Started watching live in BB Can 4, and I've watched a lot of other international versions of Big Brother as well, BB UK, BB Australia. I really love anything Big Brother as long as I can understand it. It's in English. And in my opinion, BB Can is the best, just all-around version of Big Brother.
Yeah, Big Brother Can.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've only seen this version of the show for a few weeks now, but I can definitely agree with you that it is miles better than anything we've gotten on US, especially this season, which, before we get into this week, just brief thoughts on how you're feeling about this season so far.
I'm so in love with it, especially after what happened last season of things cutting short due to COVID. This is very much just paying us back in spades what we didn't quite get last year. And even going back a little bit further with everything that was BB Can 7, definitely great gameplay, but it wasn't necessarily the most fun to watch. I feel like this season is the exact opposite, where the gameplay isn't necessarily the top-notch, absolutely best game we've ever seen, but it's been so entertaining.
Especially this week.
Oh my god.
It's been so entertaining because people seem very committed to really exploring all their options, playing the entire house rather than just focusing on one or two people. And also the fact that they're not all the best players is what makes it so entertaining. And watching them make mistakes and go, oh, why did you do that? Oh, what's going to happen as a result of that? That's really been making the season just awesome to watch for me.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've really loved about this season a lot, is that it's not necessarily about people are playing amazing, they're playing entertaining. And I will take entertaining over good gameplay that's boring.
Yeah.
What we got in Big Brother 22 and things like that. That is nowhere to be found here. But anyways, let's get into this week. What were you going to say?
I was just to say the season's been so cracked.
Yes, in the best way.
I love it so much.
Yes. All right. So let's just get into this week. So I will start off right now and say that this week is not my favorite. Definitely. This was not nearly as, I think, eventful as some of the previous weeks have been. Not a bad week or anything. I just think compared to last week, especially, it was not on the same level, but we do still have a good amount of stuff to talk about for sure. So we're going to start, of course, with Sunday's episode, where immediately we find out that Victoria, before the eviction, was trying to pit Beth against Jed and Ty. She wanted them to think that Beth was going, and that Beth entertained this idea of Ty going, and basically Beth was not expecting to be exposed for this and is hoping that Victoria doesn't blow up her game. She was really worried that this was actually going to have significant blowback on her. And immediately Ty confronts Beth about it, because nobody waits to do anything in this house. Immediately he confronts her, and she says that while she did talk to Victoria, about going for Latoya. Going for Ty never ended up happening. That was just not a possibility that ever dawned on her. And Victoria claims that this did in fact happen. And I liked the way that Victoria was trying to frame Beth for this, but it really didn't work all that well. And at this point, it feels like there's really nothing you can do to break that trio up. And how do you guys feel about the trio of Jed, Ty, and Beth? Because it kind of seems like they're unstoppable at this point.
I mean, I definitely think they are like unbreakable, but obviously Jed and Ty would be more loyal to each other than Beth, and Beth is just like using them to her advantage. She would probably cut them at some point. So like they're unbreakable right now, but like after a while they're gonna be like, let's not be.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I love seeing what Beth is doing, regardless of how strategically minded it is, or if she's just, it's been a long pandemic, and if you don't have a significant other, like, I can understand. You got needs. And I personally love seeing what she's doing, because that's not what she's doing we don't see typically in Big Brother, much less just someone having two people in the house that they're really interested in romantically and trying to go after both of them. But specifically having that person be a woman and the objects of affection be men is like very much subverting typical gender roles and things we would typically see on TV. That I really love it. From a game perspective, I am kind of sitting on the sidelines like, okay, Beth, what are you doing? Because you gotta pick, and you really think that these guys don't, like, not that they don't see what she's doing, they do. It's more so that, like, you don't expect one of them to have feelings. Like, and so it's tricky, but I like seeing it play out. Not necessarily the best gameplay, and then folding in what Victoria was trying to do, like, within that context. Even though Beth and Ty aren't necessarily a showmance, I still think through the lens of, like, Victoria, what are you thinking telling someone about their ride or die, basically being like, oh no, they're going after you, they're trying to get you to go up. Like, I just don't see how she thought that she could sow some kind of dissension between Beth and Ty. It just doesn't make sense to me why she thought that was a real avenue. But good on Victoria for at least trying something.
I would definitely have to agree with that. I think, I've expressed before, not really a fan of Beth very much at all. In fact, she probably is my least favorite of everyone in the house right now. I just find her to be really annoying and just not really someone I love watching. But I will say there are things about her game I do like. I like the way she is, she is definitely manipulating both Jed and Ty. The problem is I think Jed and Ty have each other more than they do her. And it just, didn't really end up working out. But what this does do is... I kind of
feel it. I feel like she's not going to make it that far. I can see her being like second.
She's like first juror. Like, I'll be very surprised if she doesn't go like in the next 2 weeks. It's probably going to happen.
Like, she feels like she has she reminds me of, who was that? That was BB Can 3.
I don't know. I've only watched this.
Oh Lord. Basically, like, she feel like she's in that slot of like the girl that's in an alliance in between a lot of people, but has people on her side. She feels like she's set up to go deep, but I feel like that archetype in BB Can only survives if they're pretty passive and only when it comes when they need to, and not necessarily being super active with the social game. Whereas I feel like Beth is the kind of person that's not just going to sit back and let this game play her. She's going to play. And I feel like within her position in the house, she doesn't necessarily need to be playing all that hard. At least I don't think so, or at least not in the way that she thinks that she does. And in the end, I agree with you both that, like, I do feel she's going to end up in that, like, first or second juror slot in the sense of almost like putting herself there, of things that she's set up or things that she's missed because she's so focused on something else that's over here that as a result, she misses that window of, oh, if she just actually sat back and looked pretty, she could go deep. No. So I think she's the kind of person that might play herself out of the game.
Yeah, no, definitely. I am very much in that boat. But what this does do is, even though it wasn't the impact that Victoria wanted, basically they realized, we got to win HOH. And obviously that's what ends up happening. Kiefer wins the HOH, and Beth says that their best approach, and this was something I think she did do very well, is that they need to not tell Victoria anything from this point forward, because obviously, she's just going to use it against them. And that's kind of the game game that she's playing. And he thinks that at first he thinks we need to just play it safe this week. We're going to put up Tera and Tina, which would have been a horrible move on his part if he did that, let me just say, especially with the way things end up playing out. And Rohan immediately is saying, like, Kiefer's delusional. His alliance tried to evict him last week. And this is true. They did want to end up going for him. And, this is the thing that I wasn't sure how to feel about is, do you think this was the right move for Kiefer, what he immediately decides to do, going for the other side? Should he have gone for them, or should he have tried to work with them and take a shot at the Sunsetters? What do you guys think?
I think it's tricky in that first stage of evictions already happened, and now he knows he's HOH. To the fact that you had votes against you, where those votes came from, and those votes were your friends. That's the first thing that, I'm almost surprised that he didn't have more hesitancy to, okay, these people that I thought were on my side, they were forced to make a choice, and they chose to evict me. Even though I didn't go, I would at the very least be like, I need to figure out some stuff first before I can just lean into them. Whereas Kiefer was like, cool, water under the bridge. I don't care. I know y'all had to make a decision. Let's continue working together. I don't think that was necessarily a wrong move, but I think it was a smart idea to go after a pair, especially because Kiefer doesn't have a pair. But
he's very much alone.
The way that he was talking in the beginning of the week did feel like he was beginning to go down the wrong path. And I felt like over the week he course corrected, but at first I was a little bit worried of okay, so after this week, Kiefer, why won't they target you? Especially because now that your name has been out there, people have voted for you. There's already that momentum. What are you going to do to stop that momentum? And at first I didn't think this was the best idea, but I've come around.
Yeah, I think with the way things played out, definitely. What?
I definitely think he should have, because even though he is loyal to the Sunsetters, I feel like he should have just put up one of those or two of them, because they did vote him out. But he was like, let's just stick together.
Yeah, I definitely think that was definitely the right approach. Now, Kiefer claims he doesn't know what he really wants to do this week. He's very confused. Jed can tell that people want to be good with him and that Kyle and Rohan are just kind of bullshitting. And so he does a logical thing and actually talks to Tina and Tera. And this is where I thought he started to get on a better path, where he tells them that both sides are lying. He's in a really weird spot. He knows that the people he's working with are the only ones that went for him last week. He knows that. Now, he said he's leaning towards Kyle and Ro, and that Tera brings up the idea of just going for Austin and Breydon because, Austin's a huge threat. She's won a lot of comps. Breydon has practically been invisible in this game. He has yet to touch the block, really. So why not just take that shot? And Kiefer said that he's heard that he was, in fact, Austin's target the week that she was HOH, and that he does want to work close with Tina and Tera. They're the only people he trusts now, and I think this is a great 3 for him. And again, but the thing is, it is similar to Beth, Jed, and Ty, where he's definitely the third here, because we know the kind of game that Tina and Tera are playing. They're only loyal to the other, and that's just how it's going to continue to go. And so I think that's the thing that is going to hurt him. But I do think that him working closely with these two is probably more beneficial than him working with the remnants of the Sunsetters.
Yeah.
I just got to say from the outset, can we take a moment to celebrate the pre-90s alliance? Name another season where that was ever a possibility of a thing, where we had enough people that were born before 1990 to link up. And so, I love that we have that energy in the house this season. It's very different, and I feel like that is another thing that is really playing into the flavor that this game is giving us, is that all 3 of them, Tera, Tina, and Kiefer, are people that have some experience under their belts. They're not necessarily going to be as socially fooled, I'll say, as easily as the other contestants. And as far as what that means about their strategic ability, that varies amongst the 3 of them. But I really do like them 3 working together, because I feel like they they can approach each other on their level instead of necessarily having to either make themselves feel younger or dumb themselves down to approach the younger house guests. And that within the structure of the game, I feel that it really does benefit all of them to work together for this period at the very least.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, that's something that's been so great about this season is that, we have such a diverse cast, not just in terms of ethnicity, not just in terms of sexuality, but in terms of even age. I mean, it's rare to have 3 people that are older that are very close to the same age. And I think that's amazing that we actually got that.
And props thanks to Canada for voting 2 of them as the captains. We also have to acknowledge that was part of the reason why we have them still now, was because Canada was like, oh no, you're not kicking these out first boots. Not this season.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does make sense why they decided to do that. So basically, he checks in with Victoria after this, and he tells her that he has no intention of going for her. And I was very happy about this, not just because obviously, selfishly, we want Victoria to do well. I think everyone will agree Victoria is the favorite to win right now. We want her to go far. And, I think definitely it's great to see her come out of last week such a dominant HOH with little to no blood on her hands. I think that's
just
absolutely
a beacon
amazing.
Of chaotic light.
No, literally, it just washes away. I don't know how she's able to really do it. And basically, what he ends up doing is he tells her that he wants to try to work with her, but she needs to look not too comfortable until nominations happen. And I think that was definitely the right move, considering the fact that, Vic is someone that creates a lot of chaos, and people are probably going to expect her name to go out there based on what happened. So I'm glad that he said, don't act like you are safe. I think that was definitely a good move on his part. And Victoria hopes that they can actually pull this off. And I think this is a great move for Victoria, especially with the way things played out. Kiefer at this point is one of her closer allies in the house. And I feel, especially the fact that they had HOHs back to back, I think definitely they can get pretty far with the 2 of them. And especially if things go sideways for let's say Tina and Tera turn on Kiefer, or Jed and Ty, and Beth turn on Kiefer, he still does have Victoria. And I think it's going to benefit them both in the end.
Mm-hmm.
I think with where to start? With Kiefer, the way that he spoke with Victoria and all that came between them this week, I think that was the first moment for me that really turned the light on of okay, Kiefer knows how to play this game, because I felt like he gave Vic not only the best advice for her game, but also the best advice to turn her into an ally, since that will kind of pay dividends, and that at the end of the week, he can say, look, you're safe. And not only are you safe, my tips helped you gain a little bit within the house. And so that in itself already is going to be helpful for them. And I think moving on to the Victoria side of things, especially after her HOH week, where I felt like she played it in the way of, I have a goal and I'm going to achieve this goal and I'm not caring about anything else. And that goal was getting Latoya out. And at the very least, she was able to accomplish the goal, so that's good. But she definitely did a lot of long-term damage to her game that needed to be recuperated. And this advice from Kiefer I felt was perfect, not only for Victoria's game, but also as Victoria, so far as what she's presented to us as a player in person this game, that she's not the kind of person to just sit back, be calm, cool, and collected. She's always going to draw some type of attention to herself. And so this felt like the best avenue for her to still really stay in her lane and not change things up too much. And that instead of her being chaotic in terms of what she's going to do with her HOH, it was instead chaotic in the sense of oh, Victoria really thinks she's going to go up and is worried. And so it created a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Similar narrative between the weeks.
Yes.
Whereas if she was acting all safe and she was totally fine, people would have totally noticed something's different about Victoria. What's going on? And so I really like the move from both of them in the sense of how it linked them together, and also for their individual games, how they set them up. Really great all around.
Yeah, I will say, though, aside from this conversation with Victoria, the rest of this episode is really not that interesting because it gets very repetitive. Kiefer, he picks Tina as his Wendy's date. talks about how, Cairo seemed genuine. They've been campaigning the most. Austin and Breydon, they have a hard time reading. They don't really know where they stand with Kiefer in the house. And Kiefer claims that he's too close with the Sunsetters to go after them. So it's pretty clear what he's going to end up doing. Kyle and Ro, they're trying to stir the pot in the house. They're trying to make it clear to Kiefer that like the Sunsetters aren't really with you. And it really doesn't end up working out. The Sunsetters also wanted Kiefer to backdoor Austin this week because, she's that calm threat. She's someone that could fly under the radar. And so again, Rohan tries to talk Kiefer out of doing this move. Doesn't work out, nominates Kyle and Ro, and that's basically everything that goes down on Sunday. And like I said before, I don't know if this was the best move in terms of going for Kyle and Ro. But, it's clearly what he wanted to do. He wanted to go after a duo, and he decided to go for them. It just, for me, wasn't as interesting as, say, if he were to go for Austin and Breydon or Jed and Ty even. I think that would have been far more interesting.
He should have went for Jed and Ty.
Yeah, because the difference is, the difference is that, with Kyle and Ro, they really only have each other. But Jed and Ty, they have Tina, they have Beth, they have even Victoria even. They have a lot of people in the house. And it just would have made more sense for him to go for those two, I think.
And I think it really just comes down to the fact that Kyle and Rohan were just such clear opposites to Kiefer in the house with their altercations that to at least start off the week, it just was very easy and made sense. Yeah. And in that vein, though, I like the fact that Kiefer was never, at least from what I kind of read from the situation, he was never looking at it as this simple, like, okay, Kyle and Ro are up, great, one of them's going to go at the end of the week. I felt like he was always entertaining all of his options and also understanding that he wasn't making the same mistakes as Victoria was the week before of like, okay, I'm putting my two people I want on the block and one of them's going to go. Like he very much was
he considered pawns and things like that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that is something that Victoria, as great as that HOH was, she didn't really know who she wanted to put up as a pawn, whereas Kiefer, he did have other options in mind. So I will agree with that. But again, I also do agree with Ro that this wasn't really the greatest move because they weren't really going for him specifically. They were trying to work with him in a sense. Yes, Austin was, but they weren't. And it's like, I definitely get why he was very frustrated about that whole thing. And, Kyle feels like there's other people who have lied to him more than the two of them. And that is true. Like there are other people that have lied to him more in the house. But we get into Wednesday's episode and Victoria tells Ro right off the bat that he needs to win this veto. And if he does, they're going to put up Beth. And I, again, as someone who's really not liking Beth at all, I was really hoping that this was going to happen. I was like, oh my God, I want to see fireworks go off. I want to see Beth.
I would have been so excited. That would have been so funny.
Oh yeah, that would have been great.
Also lit a fire under Jed and Ty's butts as well.
I guess that's their ship name, Ted.
I would laugh so hard if Jed and Ty actually did vote her out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it would have made sense too because we got that segment on Sunday where they talked about like that isosceles triangle with them or whatever. So it actually would have it could have maybe played into that narrative a little bit. But of course, that's not really what ends up happening. So Ty said he still wants Austin to be backdoored. He sees her as this dangerous player, and Ty is warning Beth that people were throwing her name out and that they need to get the oddballs to turn on each other. And this is kind of successful what they end up doing. Because Kyle, we basically, we see what ends up happening with this week. But speaking of other romantic things going on in the house, we also see that Kyle and Austin are starting to show feelings for each other. And Breydon feels that what's going on is very obvious. And, this is one of those things where there's always I feel like in Big Brother, there's always two showmances. One is it lasts long throughout the season and the other one is cut short. And this is definitely more of Clay and Shelly in Big Brother 17 than something like a Rachel and Brendan or something like that. This was a very short-term relationship. And how did you guys feel about this pairing? Do you think it's going to last? What do you guys think?
I would actually be here for them outside of the house because they actually seem very genuine and very sweet. And he definitely seemed to really like her. And I definitely can see them going somewhere at the end.
I gotta say, at the outset of hearing about this, and I think it also was colored by the fact that I was hearing about this among the fan base before I actually saw it on the episodes. Yeah. I was convinced that this was something that the fan base was just kind of creating. In that, I feel like not quite every year, but most years with Big Brother, there are two house guests that aren't actually in any kind of showmance or romantic anything, but the fan base is like, ooh, did you see he laid on her shoulder? Ooh, did you see she made him coffee? And she's been doing that all week. What does that mean? That's what I thought that the flavor of this was. And then I got the sense more so of like what you mentioned of like a showmance cut short, because then I was getting this feeling that the episodes were trying to like put stuff in to honor that weren't even like they were within the timeline of the show, but they almost felt like they could have been inserted from weeks past, just so the show can be like, here's evidence that this was actually kind of a thing. But I actually, in the end, agree with you, Allie, that from what I've seen from them, they seem like they have a legitimate connection. And the type of relationship that also sometimes happens on Big Brother where two people have a connection and then they realize they have a connection and then they say, maybe we don't want to do this inside of the house in front of all these people. Let's do this on our own so that it's real outside of the show. So I don't actually have to ask any questions on like, are you playing me? Is this just game? And
I like that.
Especially with what I got from them too, that was another piece that I was wondering if it was playing into it, of they were connecting, they saw that connection, but were a little bit hesitant within the environment. And then just with how the week played out, it just kind of ended up being convenient to say, let's just do this outside of the house, not inside the house.
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely that's it's possible that those two can end up together. Obviously we're not going to know truly until the season ends, but I'd be here for it. It seems pretty fun. It seems like they like each other and it seems like they have a genuine connection. So yeah, why not? So anyway, going on from that, we see
in the house they were like, we're playing Big Brother, it's not The Bachelor, so let's wait till the end.
Yeah, they did say that. So Kiefer is really hoping that strong players are picked for this veto. He really wants someone strong to be picked so that way he can in fact put up a pawn and someone can come down. And Beth, Jed, and Austin are all drawn to play, and this really is setting off alarms for Kiefer because he's like, oh no, Austin was a pawn and Austin was someone that I was potentially going to go up, and she could very well save Kyle here, which would suck, obviously. But Ro, on the other hand, feels this is worst case scenario because of Jed being there. He feels that Jed should throw the veto to make this. This was a really weird pitch, I thought. He wants to do this so it'll make it easier for Ro to win, and he then tries to convince Austin to throw the veto to Kyle. However, with Beth and Jed playing, they need to ensure that she plays hard and that she needs to do what she can to win this veto. She says there's no possible way she's going to end up throwing this one, and they start this plan where they're going to try to get Victoria to go on the block because that's the only chance that Ro has of staying. And they, of course, there's no chance that this is actually going to work out. But do you guys think this was a really weird plan? Because I really thought this was them just kind of grasping at straws. I didn't really think this was ever going to work out.
Quite honestly, I almost don't even remember all of this that happened before the veto since Ro ended up winning it. And the thing that my brain was attaching to was whenever people are creating the concept of like what a strong competitor is, that with this specific veto of like crawling around on your knees and blowing balls across the board, like if they had known that was the competition, like what determines a strong competitor in that game? Like, oh, you look like you have some strong skin on your knees, you're going to be good, or you have really big lung capacity or something. I don't know. But at least as far as the veto comp goes, I actually really enjoyed watching this veto competition. It was a little bit hard to see what was going on in terms of who was winning and losing, but outside of that piece, I thought the visuals were really strong.
I kind of low-key think that if Victoria went against one of them, she would stay just because like she's connected with like everyone. So I don't think that would have been that's not the best move on their part. They should have said like Beth or like Tera or something.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just stick to Beth. I think that would have been a much more viable option. And it also is bad because if Kiefer gets word of this, he's going to go right to Victoria and tell her. And Victoria was someone that was instrumental in creating the whole Oddballs alliance. And it's like, way to sabotage your alliance already. Like, you're trying to make sure your allies don't go. Why are you then throwing more allies out? It just... really weird move. It's really funny how last week when we were on Allie, we were talking about how the Oddballs are a better version of Faute, and now it feels like they're playing like Faute. So
messy.
Yeah.
I gotta say I like it. I like the fact that we started the week with the Oddballs, and now towards the end of the week we're like, okay, are they still
there is no Oddballs? Yeah.
I mean, okay, I'm here for it. It's just I wish they would stick together.
Yeah, no, definitely. They are really not. This was really not a smart move on their end at all. But as you do mention, Justin, Jed does end up. Ro ends up winning the veto. Jed does not throw it at all. He actually comes pretty close to winning it, and basically, Ro and Kyle both feel that Victoria needs to go up here. She was the only one not in an obvious duo, which, okay, that part I do get. But again, I just don't understand, like, why they want to go specifically for their ally. I don't think it makes sense for them to really do that. And Ro is also taken off of Slop for this week. That whole skip the dishes thing worked out in his favor. He doesn't have Slop. I don't know why I wrote this down. I didn't talk about it last week, so I don't know why I'm talking about it here. But whatever. Kiefer feels that
skip the dishes plug in there.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, I guess. But Kiefer feels that Victoria is someone they can use. There we go. Skip the dishes. Yes. This video is not sponsored by that. I don't want to get sued. So we have no affiliation to Skip the Dishes. I don't want to.
Maybe one day.
But I don't have that kind of promotion, so that's not a thing. But Kiefer feels that Victoria is someone that they can use as a number to vote with them. He doesn't think that putting up Victoria is an option at all, and I very much agree, because Victoria is someone who seems like she swings where the majority is. That's very much what she ends up, where the power is, whoever's in power. She does that to benefit herself. Not that she wants to go with the majority, but that what I mean by that is that she feels it's best to ally with the people that are in power. And especially this week when the Oddballs are throwing her under the bus, maybe she should just like go to the Sunsetters. Maybe that is like her best pitch at that point. But Kyle then pitches this idea of Victoria going up. She goes right to him, though, literally walks in right as this is happening and lets her in on what's being discussed. She says that she's here to make sure the two of them can get each other far. They both agree that Austin is the most viable option here. And at this point, Austin would definitely be the best choice for them because she has thrown his name out the most. But Austin still doesn't feel she's going to go up because of the deal that she made during the HOH. Because remember, they made that deal and Kiefer said, like, I'm not going to put you up. But it's like, how often do we actually see people stick to these deals? How often do we see people actually honor what they said? Not too often. That's just Big Brother. It doesn't happen a lot. So I feel like Austin definitely should have been a lot more worried here. She definitely should have gotten the sense that, like, I could still possibly go up. And I think she could have done a little bit more to fight for herself there.
I don't think they should have picked Austin, at least not this round. They should have just put, maybe they should have just even just done Breydon, because he is kind of just, he's just kind of there. So, like, it would make sense if they put him up instead of Austin.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They keep talking about how they see Austin, Ro, Kyle, and Breydon as this four, almost like Victoria is completely out of it. Again, Victoria just continues to, like, just not get any blood in her hands. She's not seen as this threat, which I don't know how she has that ability, but she denies that and says that she wouldn't put him on the block if she won HOH, which I think we can agree is complete bullshit. She probably would do it if she were to have won HOH there. And Kiefer says he's going to have to break some promises this week. He knows he's going to have to do it, and he's fully prepared to do that. So we get to the veto ceremony. Ro does end up obviously using the veto, and Austin then goes up as a replacement nominee. She's fuming about this, as we can expect. Kiefer says that this isn't going to be a problem for him, though. And I think he's definitely right, when it comes to Austin. But Justin, what is your perspective on Austin going up here? Do you think it was the right move? What do you think?
It's almost sad to say it's the right move, because I feel like what I always land in is like, what is Austin going to do? We saw how she behaves when she's HOH, and it doesn't feel like she's that much of a threat. And like she also feels like within the house, she's someone that's very go with the flow and not rock the boat too much. But when really thinking about it, Breydon is very similar. I think the only other question mark is the fact that we haven't seen Breydon have to really make any decisions outside of voting. We haven't seen him be HOH. We haven't seen him win a veto. And so there's a question, maybe like Kiefer's like, I don't know what he would do or say.
He's completely invisible.
Yeah, which is working for him. That's honestly a good thing this early in the game. And so in the end, it was like, okay, I understand putting Austin up. And I think in the end, it's also kind of a good idea, but you could really switch out Austin or Breydon in that spot. And ultimately, I don't think it would be that much of a difference. I think one thing also it's sad that we have to commemorate this, but it is important ever since recent seasons of Big Brother that someone who won the veto that was on the block used the veto to save themselves. Good job. That's what you're supposed to do, because it's sad how by the day the list is growing of people who don't use the veto when they're on the block on themselves. Like, what are you doing? But thank God Ro knew what he was doing, and Austin went up in his place.
Yeah, no, that was definitely, at least Ro made the right move there. And then the episode ends. We get this tease of an invisible HOH, and we don't know what the hell that means, but it was a really good cliffhanger. They keep doing this on Wednesday's episodes. They give us these cliffhangers, like last week when they didn't do the veto ceremony, or now this week they have an invisible HOH. And I like this a lot. Clearly they care about their ratings. They want their ratings to do well. They don't want this season to be canceled. And I think it's good that they're doing things like that, because not only is it just the suspense of who's going to go, but then they also give you other things that they want to tease. And I think it's cool that they ended up doing this. But so getting into Thursday.
Before we move on, I really want to focus on that cliffhanger, because that's something that's, I think, important in this season, because we saw something similar happen with the teams. That I think Big Brother Canada is being real smart in how they roll out the twists, and that they slowly roll them out to us in ways that don't fully explain it, so that after they can see our reaction, they can switch up as necessary. Because I'm still convinced that teams were supposed to be a thing for much longer, and just after hearing the outcry about how teams were being boring and how it may break the game, that they were just like, oh, we never actually said how long teams were going to last, so let's just end it. That was the same vibe I got with how they introduced the invisible HOH. That it wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but on the Wednesday episode, it wasn't even Arisa coming on to acknowledge it.
No, it was just the announcer and him being like, and what the hell does that even mean?
Exactly. And so many fans don't even listen to the very end to even get that. And so I think that was one way for them to kind of put it out there, test the feelers, because also there's the question mark of maybe they were just going to do this and they didn't know how it was going to go, and they were looking to us of like, ooh, what does the fan base want to see? Let's just do that in the house. Who knows how much of this was actually planned versus them changing things up based off of our reception.
Right.
But A, they're smart to leave themselves that wiggle room, and B, they've shown before that BB Can really cares about what the fan base thinks. So I'm personally all for continuing to roll out twists this way of tease it to us a little bit beforehand, then maybe read a couple tweets about what we're thinking to make sure that then it actually goes well in the game.
Yeah, no, definitely. Viewer reception is very important. And that's something they've shown very well this season, going all the way back to Ethan's casting and then them dropping him and replacing him with Kyle. I mean, you really do see that, like, I think the best thing about Arisa taking over is that she's very cognizant about what people actually want and what they don't want. And she doesn't just have fucking Alison Grodner mentality where do the opposite of what the fans want. She actually cares about the fans because she is one herself, and that's just how it should be, and we love that.
Big Brother can actually care, and they actually put a lot of effort into everything.
Yes,
I think it's because they know the value of their fans, since they know that they were on the brink of being canceled and they only came back because of us. So they're like, we'll make sure we pay attention to y'all. So when this comes up again, you'll fight for us again.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into the events on Thursday. So big thing to talk about here is this great fight that starts up between Kyle and Victoria, because she heard that Kyle was saying her name and she just goes off on him about how she's heard about the plan to get her out and that she's going to make sure not only that, he pays for this, but that he is going to go this week. She's going to do what she can to secure the votes for him to go. And he feels that there's a lot of hypocrisy going on this week. And Victoria doesn't understand why he's playing this way when they're supposed to be working together. I feel this was completely valid on her end because, again, she created this alliance. It's supposed to be her, Austin, Breydon, Ro, and Kyle, and for them to already turn on it is a really weird move, and she doesn't really understand why they would throw her out. They had so many other options. They could have done Beth, they could have done Tina or Tera, but not like Kiefer would have been down for that, but still, it makes more sense for their side, at least, to go for her rather than, to go for them rather than her. And I think that definitely, I think she had some very valid points that were made here. And I think in general, like this really tanked Kyle's game a lot.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I thought it was so fascinating how that altercation went down, because it started with Kyle calling out Kiefer's speech, which I was in the same boat when I heard Kiefer give that speech, was like, okay, you're talking about how your word means so much, and yet at the same time you're a hypocrite and putting up the person that you very clearly made a deal with in front of the whole house. So Kyle was right in calling out Kiefer and saying he was a hypocrite. And then the fact that Victoria just launches in on Kyle, completely ignores what Kyle says, and is like, no, Kyle, I have an issue with you, and this is the issue. I was like, oh, we never get altercations like this where someone is like taking advantage of the fact that someone is speaking to go at them, but in no way acknowledges any of the points that they made. I felt like that was very uniquely Victoria, and I was totally here for it. I loved it.
Oh yeah. I mean, Victoria is just someone where, you cross her once, doesn't matter anything else that you did. She just, uses that against you, and suddenly you're going to feel guilty in the end of it. And I think that is what's ultimately going to help her out in this game, is that she's very good at making people feel guilty, and not that she has wronged them. She's done this now twice, and I think it's really working out for her. And I think that's the thing where it's like, there have been multiple situations, even last week, where, she could have found herself in hot water, but she hasn't, because she finds a way to always turn it around and put the blame on someone else. And I think she's doing a great job with that here for sure. But Tina and Tera then feel that they're in this great spot, and they're very tight with Kiefer. They feel that this is the most comfortable they have been so far, and Kiefer thinks that this could really be like a strong 3 if he works closer with them, obviously. And we talked about this, they think they can work perfectly, and their names haven't been out the whole game. And Victoria, meanwhile, says to Austin and Breydon that though Cairo is campaigning hard, nothing they are saying is going to stick, and assures them that they're good. She wants to make sure that the bossy glossies is still a thing. Little does she know they were also throwing her name out, but it's whatever. I like that she at least is trying to stay on Austin and Breydon's good side for now. I like that she is doing that. I think it was definitely the right move on her part, especially the fact that she knows Kyle is probably leaving, and she knows that, Ro is going to be alone at that point, so he'll probably be easier to go for. Whereas Austin and Breydon, this is a trio that she's kind of formed, and she knows that she's very close to them. And even though she's starting to drift apart, I like that she's not cutting them off entirely. She is still kind of making an effort to work with them here.
I really love Tina and Tera together, and I think it's
the Tina and Tera show is the best.
Gold. I also love the fact that in those little clips, it's very clear that they're like, oh, Tina and Tera show, they're never going to show this on TV. And it's like, nope, we get it every single week. But I feel like that something about them two working together really balances them out. And for me, even on like a likability scale, that Tina, when like before she even got in the house, like her intro packages and stuff, I was immediately falling in love with her. Just so many different things about her. She felt like a very complex person that it's very easy to be with, which I think is a really tough kind of space to sit in. And I feel like that is really like playing out in the house, and that a lot of people really connect with her in different ways, and at the same time are like, they're not threatened by her. People aren't always talking about like, oh, Tina's so strategic, or oh, Tina's so strong, or anything like that. And then Tera, I felt like in the first couple like weeks or so, she was really just kind of out in the wind, blowing around, just doing whatever she could to stay alive. Like, it's still burned into my head, that moment where Jed was having that house meeting of like, who's saying my name? And Tara's just sitting there like, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And so at first I was like, okay, she's messy, and I guess I'm here for the mess. And I was honestly a little bit souring on her in that, like, just her reads seem a little off. She wasn't the most strategic. I love that her head was in the game, but it felt like it never was quite in the right place. And just something about them two coming together really brought Tera into the fold to understand what's going on. Like, I feel like Tina is someone that like works best when she has someone, for lack of a better word, below her as her number two, that she can not necessarily rely on for things, but almost as like, this is a person I can talk to, maybe even talk down to a little bit. Like, this is someone that I can like give the facts of what's going on. And I feel like that's what makes her most comfortable. Whereas Tera, I feel like, benefits from Tina being that like nice, stagnant, strong post that's not necessarily moving unless she has to. And so together, I think they're a very formidable force. And I'm wondering what's going to break them up, because for some reason, I don't see them sticking together deep into the game. It's just something about them that, it's not that they're not committed to each other, but the fact that they're both such self-interested players, I just don't foresee a scenario in which that all of the moves benefit both of them equally. Inevitably, there's going to be a moment that comes up where a move is going to benefit one way more than the other, and the other is going to notice. And I think that is what's going to kind of start to sow the seeds of dissension and break them up.
I can see them like working together, like going forward, because I've been really enjoying them, but I don't see them making it super far. Maybe like a few, like maybe like third, fourth, or something like that. I don't really see them making it super far.
Yeah, and if I can be honest, I think in general, Thursday's episode, this was Tera's strongest episode yet. I think there's a lot of agency from her, especially with this segment we get where she talks about how, she believes that she is the swing vote this week, and that, she knows what needs to happen. Austin isn't campaigning much, thinking she's safe, while Kyle isn't really doing much either. And so she doesn't really like how quiet they're being. So what does she do? She decides that she's going to do the pitching herself. And so she wants Kyle to stay, mainly because she knows that Kyle is going to target Jed and Ty and start this war between them. And I thought this was genius on her end. It doesn't work out, obviously, but I thought this was a really strong move on her end, because Austin is someone that's such an obvious target. They should just go for her now, but she doesn't feel that that's the right, she feels that it's the right move to just go for Austin now because she is such a big target. She could win HOH and they won't be able to go for her. And Tera said that it could come down to like this tie vote. She's not sure if she can really trust Jed, Ty, or Breydon and Austin. And Kiefer says that he trusts Jed and Ty more than Breydon and Austin. He feels that Austin is coming for him next week if she's in power. So it seemed like for a little bit, they really thought this was going to work. They let Rohan know that there are rumors that the other side wants to take out Austin and that they can want to save Kyle if they can. And Rose says that he would do anything to keep him in the game. Obviously, Kyle's is number one at this point. He's going to go to bat for him all he really can. And he says that if they want to make this plan happen, they got to do some work. He doesn't know if it's actually going to work though. And like I said, I think this was a really good move on Tera's part, even though it didn't end up working out. She showed a lot of agency in this episode, and it really showed that I think we've all vastly underestimated her. And I said it on Twitter, a couple days ago. I think at this point she's the most underrated player of the season. I really do. I think there's so much more to her than people are seeing in terms of gameplay. I kind of saw her as just kind of being like having the furniture edit where she's just not really there, but they're really starting to do a lot more with her. And I think we really did get to see that in this episode.
I thought that it caught me off guard, first of all, how much she was in Kyle's favor in that, when she had to go in and cast the vote,
to her,
that she was like basically in tears. That I was like, oh, whoa, okay, there's something that I'm missing here. Like they really. And
she said she saw Kyle as like a son in the house and things like that, which I was not expecting.
Yeah, and so that was one thing that definitely made me go like, okay, maybe I'm not getting the full read on Tera. Maybe there's something I'm missing.
Yeah,
and that when. Oh, the idea is in my head, and now it's gone. It'll come back to me in a second. I'll interrupt one of you.
Yeah. Okay, so what ends up happening is Kyle goes to Jed and Ty about why they should keep him, and he actually gives them a really good plan. He says he wants to stay and that they've been in the same page with getting wishy-washy players out like Kiefer, and that they aren't going to want to be the ones to do it, which, again, I think this was a good play. They're not really with Kiefer right now. They were willing to throw him under the bus, and they know that. But if Cairo does this, then it will come out, basically, he thinks that him and Ro should do all of the damage for them. They can do their dirty work. The four of them can really team up, which is obviously the opposite of what Tera really wanted them to do, which is where it kind of backfires for her. But basically, he thinks at the end that he knows for sure that he will not get Kiefer's vote, and that he's basically going to muddy the waters for himself so that way they can come out of this clean. And again, Kiefer comes in for like a second. Kyle says that Austin's like this bigger target, and Jez says that they've heard that that Kyle and Rohan are coming for them, which Kyle says is not true, and that they want him in jury. This is their opportunity to do it. He thinks that they want him in jury, but the thing is, I don't think Kyle really understood where Jed and Ty really stood with him in the game. I don't feel like at any point in this game they've made it clear, like, we want to work with you. We really want to take the time to get far with you in the game. So while I do think this was a good pitch, I don't think it was to the right people overall. I think there were other people he needed to pitch to, and I just don't think that Jed and Ty really had him in this game at any point.
I feel like with Kyle and Ro and Ty and Jed, they were always kind of talking past each other or on different pages on the wrong times, in that, like, one week, Jed and Ty were like so focused on working with Kyle and Ro. And a different week, Kyle and Ro are super focused on working with Jed and Ty, but it never quite synced up. And I find that that's a very common thing with Big Brother of like people either bouncing between alliances, or even in the case where there are some houses where it's a split house, that you'll have people on one side saying, oh, well, we can work with this person over there. But then the next week comes and the person hears, oh, the people over there wanted to work with me. I should go work with them. But then the people over there were like, that was last week. We're done with this. And I feel like very much that it was on a much like simmering level rather than boiling level with Kyle and Ro and Jed and Ty, of the fact that they had their little like truce and that didn't quite really go anywhere, that they were never so vocally out to get one another that they were like ridiculously questioning one another, but at the same time, they were never all on the same page forcefully enough to quell any fears or dissension within that quad of them four. And so it was just, as a result, I felt like they were just always talking past each other, never on the same page. And that, I think, is really dangerous in the house, because I think Kyle was on their old page and he thought that it was the current page.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this was just too little, just too late. I think it's the best way to sum it up. Like, if he had done this like a week ago, maybe this could have worked, but it was just too late at that point to really to really let anything happen here. I mean, especially how instrumental, Victoria is here, because Kyle says to Ro that there's a lot of hypocrisy going on, and that despite him not really, Victoria comes into this have-not room, tells him this information that they were told after the Latoya vote. And Ro brings up how Jed and Beth weren't going to throw the veto and that they wanted him to think that they were throwing it. Victoria doesn't really care about this information. She's tired of the constant disloyalty. And so I really think Victoria really was the reason why this did not work out, because at the end of the day, if they're going to be disloyal to Victoria, they could be disloyal to Jed and Ty. And I could very well see her. I don't know if she did this. I don't know if she did, but I could have seen her go to Jed and Ty and pitch this reasoning to them. Like, yeah, he's not with you and you can't trust him right now. And I think that is really what, made this plan fail overall. I think Victoria was very much behind that.
I just remembered what I was thinking about earlier of one thing that Big Brother Canada does very well, especially compared to the other Big Brother versions, is they really focus in on the underdogs and make sure that they get all the airtime possible. And that, like, it was kind of funny to think that with the Kyle, Ro, Jed, and Ty conversation that we have been seeing Jed and Ty, but not necessarily a whole lot for how well positioned they are in the house. It's not like we're getting 20 minutes of them talking about their strategy and the pawns that are going to go up and this and that thing that's going to happen. Instead, we're getting Tina and Tera. We're getting a lot of Kyle and Ro. We're getting a lot of Victoria. And even going back to previous weeks, it was something that I was very much picking up on of, oh, we're getting a lot of footage of people that are on the block or people who are aligned with people on the block. And the people that are safe, it feels like the producers know they'll be around for a while. They'll have a lot of airtime when they're the only people left. Like, we don't need to focus on them yet. And I think that really just adds a different flavor to the show that is just makes it a different show almost. And that we really get airtime for everyone rather than it just being, okay, we focus on these people that are at the top and then actually get to know people once they're evicted. And I think it also then helps us as viewers have a better opinion of what's going on in the house, because we have much more of a vantage point on the people that are scrambling and trying to do whatever they can to stay alive. And I think that's so much more interesting than the people that are at the top that are just like, okay, what's going on 2 weeks from now?
Yeah. So getting into, I mean, just the way it plays out, Kyle pitches to the house that, they shouldn't let lies tear them apart, that they should potentially, keep him in. Now, Austin, again, doesn't really feel like she's going to go here. She says she's very blessed, all that stuff, and that it only takes 5 votes for one of them to go home, which was really interesting because Kyle ends up leaving in a 7-1 vote. The only person who's leaving him is Rohan. And I thought
kept him.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I thought that Tera was, doing some great work, and I thought that it was potentially going to work. But even she decides that, no, it's not going to work. I'm just going to have to evict him here. And again, I think what really came down to it was just Victoria planting the seeds of Kyle has lied a lot. Kyle is not someone that we can really trust in the house, and Kyle's not really with you. And I think Tera just realized that it was kind of a lost cause at that point. There just wasn't going to be any saving him. And I think in general, especially because she wants to play that middle game, she can't really let people know where her, she can't really show her cards in that way. And that's the only thing right now about her playing that middle game. This kind of applies to Tina as well, is that they can't really show their cards in the votes. They have to be very careful with the way they end up handling that, because a lot of people don't really know what they're doing. And so I think that's ultimately why she ended up going that way. And even in his interview, like, Kyle's not really upset about what ended up happening. He knew he didn't have the votes to go. And he thinks that he does think that Rohan is going to do well without him, which we're not going to talk about here, but I don't know about that. Kyle says that he does have legitimate feelings for Austin and that he really hopes that Rohan ends up taking the win and Kyle ends up leaving. And again, I think again, it's really just what Victoria said that ended up fucking him over here.
I'm just glad Austin stayed, even though Kyle was like, I didn't dislike Kyle. He was just kind of boring as a player.
See, I'm on the other side of things. Like, I get Austin's got the stands behind her. I don't quite see it. Like, she's great. She's nice. She's a nice presence. Not my favorite on the cast necessarily. I was actually kind of sad to see Kyle go because I really liked specifically Kyle and Ro together. The way they played off each other, and they both had very strategic, logical mindsets, I felt was a really great energy to keep in the house as like honestly, as a foil to Ty and Jed, even though they were constantly flirting, working with each other, that just those as opposing forces really felt like it balanced out the house. And also the fact that I felt like we got to know more about Kyle in those last couple days. That was like, oh wait, no, I don't want you to go now. Of really learning his background of playing Big Brother style games and cabins off out in the middle of nowhere. And And that was I wish you could stay around longer. That though with Austin, I think the thing that I like the most about Austin that's really actually going to take her far is that she has a lot of pageant queen vibes of she knows how to say what she needs to say or what you should say in a certain moment in the right way. And that is perfect for speeches or house meetings or anything where you have everyone. And I think also explains why in one-on-one conversations, Austin always feels so awkward because I feel like she says what she needs to say, but in the one-on-one conversations, the other person can tell you're just saying what you need to say. You're not actually being honest and upfront with me. And I can tell she has that little bit of young awkwardness of oh, I don't feel confident being my full self around you because you may vote me out and I don't fully know you, who knows? But that's something that I very much have a hot and cold relationship with Austin over, is that I think it's a really great asset that she has that poise about her. But at the same time, I think, at least for me personally, I interpret her as fake more times than I should because of that quality about her.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely can see where you're coming from there. But what were you gonna say? Were you gonna say something? Oh, I guess not. Anyway, so the way things do end up here, Arisa does reveal how the invisible HOH comp's going to work. Everything they do this week is completely in secret. Basically, the HOH, they can win the POV, they can play in next week's HOH comp. They even could put themselves on the block if they wanted to. So it's completely different from anything we've really seen before. Unfortunately, the only thing that's, they don't get is the luxury of getting the HOH room. That's completely closed off because obviously that would reveal who the invisible HOH is. The only, real condition is that Kiefer is barred from competing, and that's really it. We end off not knowing who ended up winning. Obviously, we know now, but we're not going to talk about that because we want to talk about live feeds here. But yeah, that's really how things play out in terms of the invisible HOH. And, taking live feeds out of context, how do you think this twist is going to, influence the game overall, Justin?
I'm so excited to see where this goes because I feel like this is what the fan base has always asked for, in the sense of whenever there are two house targets that I'll say house targets in the concept of the audience where we really want to see these people go up on the block, like the Jack and Jackson of it all. That
oh my God, yes.
Then within the house, there's the danger of putting those two house targets up because they're either comp beasts or they have a lot of social connections or whatever the reason. This is the perfect kind of twist to allow for that chaos to happen, not have it blow back, and at least on the outset, you would think that's what it should be like. And then as I started thinking about it more in the context of okay, if I was in the house, if there was an invisible HOH and it wasn't me, what would I think? What would I say? How would I would act? And then on the other side, if I was the invisible HOH, what would I do? And I'm more worried about how the house operates when there is no HOH, because I think that concept was what actually started making me think about the international versions of Big Brother, since those rely on an audience vote to eliminate someone. There's no HOH saying these people get nominated. It feels like the house might trend a little bit more in that direction of, okay, if there's no HOH, we don't necessarily have to we can't say we're following the HOH, what the HOH wants. we can't necessarily like have this narrative going on in the house that's controlled by the HOH. It's something that is more collectively controlled by the house. And the question that's obviously on everybody's minds is like, well, if it was you, who would you put up? And that dynamic, I think, is really going to change things because, one, I think there are going to be so many more names flying around this house. And that even if the invisible HOH, whoever that is, like actually takes those names or tries to stir the pot or doesn't even do anything with it, regardless of whatever they do, the house is going to get a little bit more rattled because just, again, more names are out there. And so I'm just really interested to see how it affects the dynamic of the house, much less about what the HOH is going to do with the power, because the HOH in North American Big Brother is such an important kind of North Star around the week of dictating how people even interact with each other in the house, of what is acceptable and not acceptable. Because even though it's a joke, it is a real thing of like, oh, if you piss off this person, you're going to get put up. So I'm just eager to see how this week plays out, because I think the house is forced to just interact with each other differently.
I think the invisible HOH is just going to go the easy route and just put up 2 random people, because they're probably trying not to get the blood on their hands, so they're just going to do something completely random.
Yeah.
So that's what they're probably going to do. And sorry, I had to go off cam for a second.
Yeah, you're fine.
My mom was just in here talking to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was wondering who you were talking to. But yeah, I'm very excited to see how that plays out. For all we know, this week could be a joke because, evictions on April Fool's Day. So maybe there might not even be an eviction, but I guess we'll have to see what ends up happening.
On the 1st?
It is, yeah. It's on April Fool's Day.
I really hope it's a fake eviction.
If there's I can totally see BB Can doing that. I can totally see that happening.
It better be.
Only reason why I don't wish for that, or I'll say I hope that they don't tell us until the eviction itself, it's a prank on us and the house, because there's nothing more frustrating than a rewind week that doesn't matter. I think back to BB16 when the rewind week happened in final 6 or final 5, and I was like, why are you wasting our time in the most boring part of the season that all of this that happens this week doesn't mean anything? What are we wasting our time for? So,
but there's also still a lot more people in the house than at that point. Exactly. So that's the thing. There's definitely a lot more possibilities for what could happen.
Yeah. At the very least, if they were to pull it, I also have faith in BB Can that they won't tell us until it actually is about to happen. And then coming back to the invisible HOH of it all, that this is, I feel like Big Brother just in general, not just BB Can, but BBUS as well, is hopefully on a nice upswing with twists, because this is yet another twist that I don't have much of a problem with. It's not that triple eviction where all this stuff happens all at once and all this power goes to one person. It feels like it really has the potential to be a balanced twist that changes up the game, not too much, is still really fair. Everyone has a shot at being the invisible HOH. And I also like the fact that, which I may be shooting myself in the foot and may hate this come next week, who knows, but the concept that even the invisible HOH gets to compete next week. So that's not even how people can deduce it of oh, this person can't compete, so they were obviously HOH. So on paper, at the outset of the week, this feels like a very fair twist. And I'm excited to see how it plays out, because it doesn't seem like something that is just going to clearly favor one side or one person.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, the most balanced that it could possibly be in a way that Big Brother's not, which is obviously very refreshing to see. But anyway, that's really everything that goes down in terms of this week. That really is everything that we are going to talk about. But before we do end things here, Justin, I am going to give you a chance to give your outro and things like that. So go ahead.
I'm super excited for this season of BB Can. I think it has potential to be one of the best ever. I tweet about it on Twitter. You can follow me at SplitStash, at SplitStache.
There it is.
Split Stash. Perfect. There we go. And that's me on all social platforms. For those of you that don't know me at all, I'm also a contortionist. I do contortion and hand balancing circus stuff. So if you follow me on Instagram, that's what you'll find there. But yeah, this was absolutely great. I don't have many friends friends in real life that watch Big Brother, so this is so much fun to get to talk to real people about it.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun having you on. You know, I think you're someone that people remember but haven't seen in a while, so it was cool to like, you know, it was kind of like the greatest hits edition of a conversation with Kely, will you? That's the best way to, I think, sum it up. But anyways, guys, that's really it for this week. Hope you, of course, as always, comment down below. Let us know what you guys thought of this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We will see you guys in our next video, and we will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.
Bye.
See ya.